Mick, thanks for joining me. Steel conduit tube is an incredibly important product in the industry. You could say it's the backbone of some buildings aside from your steel and channel. What should people look for when they're sourcing conduit tube? What are the really important things they need to know about?
Okay, well, the first thing we need to assess is that the conduit tube meets the British standard. Now, on Metpro tube, the British standard for reference is BSEN 61386-1 plus A1 2019. I won't repeat that again.
Okay.
But basically, the product needs to be stamped to that. If it's not stamped to that, stay away. But as far as Metpro's product goes, that standard brings in numerous tests in regards to strength, corrosion resistance, fire resistance, all those kind of things within that standard. And the Metpro product is tested towards that. So, for instance, on this particular product here, you can see that we stamp our product with our brand name, and that is part of the standard requirement, that there is an identifiable brand on it. We also put the full British standard number, and then you'll see 4 digits beyond that. And like I mentioned, there's 13 different categories within the standard. These 4 numbers here denote the first 4 and the level of achievement that our product achieved within those first 4 categories. Right. So one of them is compression and so on. So and these 4 numbers are 5557, and that is the highest level in each of those 4 categories that you can achieve within the standard. So we're pretty confident in our own product.
Okay.
But then if you follow that on, you've got a clear indication of what the product is. So in this instance, this is class 4, which is the highest corrosion resistance, hot dip galvanized, people would call it. And that's marked on there. And then we've got a tracing number as well. Okay. So for every batch we produce, we can take it right back to core production. And that's very important from a traceability point of view as well. And then we put on the end there the size of the tube, but most people who handle this kind of product would know straight away what that is. But so that's the real key feature for us, that the product meets the standard, and the product should show it to prove it.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of things that you've said there that I wanted to pick up on. So the first thing is, you said if tube that's been sourced hasn't got this marking, or effectively exactly the same information with probably a different brand, you said stay away. Why?
Because you've got no traceability, you've got no clear indication of what it is produced to then. Because for it to, as part of the standard, the product needs to be stamped, showing the standard. That is a clear category within the standard.
And those components of the marking have to be on there to
they do
conform.
So even for instance, these 4 digits here that I talked about, the 5557, that's an inclusion that came in the last 18 months, 2 years, on an appendix that's been added to the standard. And what that really does, it just gives a clear indication of, okay, the product's passed the tests, but to what level? Mm-hmm. And these 4 digits can tell you what category level you passed at. So that's the inclusion of that. Again, is part of the standard now, so you should be looking for that on your lengths of channel.
And that's what
conduit. Sorry.
And those 4 numbers then are, you said they're part of an update to the standard, I think. So that's the plus A1 2019. That's
correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And we've got here we've got a length of hot dip galv and a length of pre-galv. Now on the pre-galv one, obviously you've got a different SKU code to denote what it is, but it's in black ink versus the hot dip galv, which is blue ink. Is that a necessity, or is that just us?
There's no necessity to it, but obviously they're both silver, and just from a visibility point of view, we've gone for 2 different colours so that you can clearly identify what is a class 4 hot dip galv product and what is a pre-galvanised product. It makes it much easier for the customer.
Brilliant. Okay, so moving on from the markings then. And I wanted to ask about this because there's been, certainly in my time here, there's been a few instances of when end users have bent tube and you hear of tube lengths splitting or cracking. How can that be avoided? Do we have anything in place to prevent that?
We certainly insist on a minimum wall thickness. So you start with 20 and 25 mil. Our product's minimum wall thickness 1.37.
Right.
In reality, our product is averaging anywhere between 1.4 and 1.45 on every batch that comes in, and they're tested.
Okay.
So that guarantees a certain amount of strength. Within the standard, there are all the different categories, with including in that is impact, compression, all these strength tests that really product would fail if the wall thickness is too light on it. So, and the other thing as well is when you're putting a thread on the product, if the wall thickness is too thin, your thread will cut through and you'll start to see visible indications of the thread inside the tube, or even cutting through the tube and exposing the inside. Those are the kind of things that could happen on a product that is too thin.
Okay.
But 1.37 on a 20 and 25 mil. Obviously, with the larger sizes, 32 mil upwards, the wall thickness increases with each one.
Brilliant. Okay. And then, is there anything else that people need to consider? Because I mean, like I've already mentioned, we've got a pre-galv length here, we've got a hot dip galv length here. Why have we got two different finishes?
Well, generally speaking, hot dip galvanized would be recommended for external use, or areas where you've got humidity or the potential of corrosion. The pre-galv product is perfectly fine. In fact, it's great for internal use and all those areas where you're not likely to get sort of the impact of moisture or water.
Right.
That's the main differences between the two.
Okay. And there is a third option as well, which we haven't got here. But is there anything people need to be aware of if they source black conduit tube? Are there any particulars they need to be aware of?
The thing with black conduit now is that it is mainly bought for aesthetic reasons. So in regards to corrosion resistance, it's not the strongest. And so really you need to take that into account straight away. But secondly, when you're starting to form and bend black, the finish on that sometimes can sort of crack or cause issues if you're putting extreme bends. And we would generally suggest with black that when you're putting a bend or forming, you would use an accessory to do that, a radius bend or an elbow or T, right, whatever that may be.
Mick, I think we've covered quite a bit there. So the key things are you want to make sure you've got the right finish for the application that you're installing into, between hot dip, galv, pre-galv, and I assume that black enamel's more for aesthetics.
Yep.
And check your wall thickness, so you can avoid any breakage or tearing in the actual lengths of tube themselves when bending. And the key one is the markings. Make sure your product is up to standard. If it's not, who knows what the problems could be.
Correct.
Brilliant. Mick, thanks for the time.
No problem.